I really thank all of you for patiently waiting for this beautiful event. Once again, I would like you to share your opinions, thoughts, experiences about this event on your social media accounts. Our hashtag is DNBBEOT. I repeat, DNBBEOT. So let's kickstart this mega event, Dun and Bradstreet's Business Enterprises of Tomorrow 2022. Can we have a huge round of applause for this event? Come on, guys, we can do better. It is indeed my honor to host this event today, where we will be facilitating the spirit of entrepreneurship, and we would be recognizing the significant role played by the small and mid-sized businesses towards nation building. SMEs and MSMEs, as we all know, are the powerhouses of the economy and are one of the largest generators of employment, export, and revenue. And above all, the sector is the fountainhead of entrepreneurial spirit. Over the years, budding SMEs and MSMEs across the nation have helped the country to grow in terms of economic prosperity, social upliftment, and industrial development, and have gradually placed India on track to become a self-reliance nation. Can we have a round of applause for this achievement? Thank you. It is our great opportunity for Indian entrepreneurs to make their presence felt on the international turf as global companies are making conscious efforts to diversify their supply chains. It is, in fact, India's moment to rise and shine and take the center stage as the manufacturing hub of the world. And as we take on this journey, the youth of our country will have to play an active role. India has its biggest advantage in its young. I truly believe in that. The youth of our country have also been driving the spirit of entrepreneurship and charting new territories on the back of new age technology. There is no dearth of young talent in India, and the rising digital natives are the ones that will lead to the growth in the industry in the years to come. This is why our theme for today is rightly Time for India's New Age Entrepreneurship. It is a great privilege to be a part of such an inspiring and motivating event. I take this opportunity to extend a heartfelt gratitude to our event partners, presenting partner, Yes Bank, co-partner, Wilhelm Textiles India Private Limited, telecom partner, Vodafone India Limited, financial advisory partner, Fin2, e-commerce partner, Shopify Inc., branding partners, we have 3 of them, Cosmos Impex India Private Limited, LMS, Ugrow Capital Limited, corporate gifting partner, Titan Company Limited, telecast partner, ET Now. Before we proceed, I'm going to repeat this and remind you again and again. Please use this opportunity to share your views, your thoughts, and leave a good word on your social media accounts. Our hashtag is DNBBEOT. On that note, let us dive straight into the first session of the day. It is an introductory note, the topic of which is Indian SMEs Changing Global Dynamics. And to present this note, may I call upon Dr. Arun Singh, Global Chief Economist, Dun and Bradstreet. Dr. Singh needs no introduction, ladies and gentlemen. He is a leader par excellence. Presently, as the Global Chief Economist, Dr. Singh oversees the Global Economic Research Team, which conducts macroeconomic research, modeling, forecasting, and formulates pragmatic and solution-oriented analysis of strategic economic and business development across 132 countries. Dr. Singh is a seasoned economist with over 2 decades of experience in the fields of quantitative and qualitative economic research, econometric modeling, forecasting, analytics, commodity research, customized research, and industry research. He is well known for economic research in the areas of real sector, public finance, monetary and fiscal policy, external sector, and infrastructure and social sector. Before joining Dun Bradstreet India, Dr. Singh was associated with the Tata Group, handling projects related to in-depth analysis and research in various economic issues. He was also involved in treasury strategies for some of the group companies, as well as in the long-term strategic assessment of various businesses. A doctor in economics from University of Mumbai, Dr. Singh has published many thought leadership articles and papers across various subjects of business interest. Ladies and gentlemen, come on with a huge round of applause. Let us please welcome Dr. Arun Singh.
Thank you, Priyanka. I like all this type of setup because you get to hear all the good news about yourself. All the good stuff, which is great. And that also from the Priyanka, multi-talented person. So, good morning, everyone. I thought this is the pre-lunch session, so a lot of energy. I think entrepreneurs are supposed to be, they all consider as an energetic lot. Good morning again. Now this is perfect. And welcome to Business Enterprise of Tomorrow. And I think Priyanka touched based many, insight, many statistics. And I'll try to be as energetic as possible, but not like Priyanka's. I know she's more energetic today. Now, coming back to today's subject, I don't have to talk about some of the statistics, what she already explained, and all of you are aware about the real power of MSME in India, not just in India, in other countries as well. But 3 statistics, if I have to basically put together, that one, MSME contribute 1/3 to India's GDP. We all aware. MSME contribute 1/4 to the non-farm employment. MSME contribute 50% to the India's exports. Now, in our journey, where we are targeting to become a 5 trillion economy, government is targeting to ensure that MSME contribute 50% of that lot, which means from today till 5 trillion economy, the incremental GDP which will be created during this phase, 75% of that should come from the MSME. Huge target, and I don't think so that's not achievable. Of course that's achievable, but there are certain things required for all of us to do together, whether talk about people in this room, whether talk about the MSME outside this room, whether talk about the service provider like us, government and other stakeholder. But before that, let's look at the structures of MSME. Most of you might have seen in the past, but those 1/4 contribution to the non-farm employment and 1/3 contribution to the GDP actually coming from, mostly from those 4% of small and medium enterprises which we have in India. I think you might have heard about the missing middle concept from The Economist. Of course, I have to live with my job profile. That's why I'm trying to use this concept missing middle. Unfortunately, in India, if I take 100 MSME, 95 of that belongs to the micro, what we call very survivalist companies. They're just barely trying to live. And then 4% we have what we call small and medium enterprises, and less than 1% the large enterprises. That number, unfortunately, against in other developed country is far low. If I have to talk about small and medium, it's 4%. The 40% you can see in the USA, something around the Canada and Australia. Just imagine that if we are contributing to that, not even 40%, just 10%, 20%, 30%, and this section, what we call a missing middle, is going to contribute to those 75% incremental GDP which we are talking about, the target is achievable. What we need to do, it seems that the transition between micro to small, from small to medium, and from a medium to large is not working in India, at least so far. But there are initiatives taken by the government. Last 1 month, in fact 2 months, I'm traveling to Delhi, meeting most of the MSME people and most of the ministry level people. They are talking about, they're serious about, ensuring that this segment gets a good prospect, which means there is a commitment from the government. Now what we need, how we can basically ensure that we are reaching to that lot, we are reaching out to that basic, the target what we're talking about. But unfortunately, when I move on, last 20 years, we are talking to MSME in DND, and we've spoken to MSME across clusters, state, and various industries. We talk to them that if you're growing or not growing, what are the basically issues and challenges you face to graduate from a micro to small to medium to large. They have basically given us various issues and challenges. We have created a library. And these 8 issues and challenges is basically small portion of that library of issues and challenges which all of you have some point of time shared with us. The 3 come out loud and clear and consistently over a period of time. Of course, that talks about market access, whether it talk about domestic as well as the international, whether talk about improving productivity, and the third is very critical. You don't need me to tell you, the access to finance, and that's very critical. And there are many, I'm just trying to pick up just 3 things. How collectively we can understand what is the issue we are facing, and how collectively we can ensure that we reach some consensus in terms of the solution. Let's pick up one by one. That's what we call technology, and that's productivity. If you see, I'll take you all 250 years. That time is probably before Industry Revolution 1. And India was doing good job in terms of per capita. We've taken a data from 7 countries. We talk about US, Japan, India, UK, France, Germany, China. And what we found, before start of Industrial Revolution 1, India was 3rd in the lot, the per capita. And then we had first Industrial Revolution. Unfortunately, India slipped to the 4th rank. Then we had a second Industrial Revolution. Unfortunately, we slipped further down to the 6th rank. Then we had an Internet age, the 3rd Industrial Revolution. We slipped last country in the league. And now we are part of the 4th Industrial Revolution. We are still there. The idea of this one, the last 3 Industrial Revolution, unfortunately, we missed the bus. And we understood that technological progress is going to drive all the growth scenario, not just in the country, in fact in the world, which means can we afford to lose out Industrial 4 at this point of time, or be not part of, or not adopting the Industrial 4. That unfortunately we don't have any option. In fact, not just about 250 years, The disruption age, when we talk about technological disruption age, that also shrinking. And you know that mainframe, that lab coat mainframe was lasted something around 30 years. The mini computer was 20 years. Internet age was just 10 years. And the digital era is just 5 years. Which means by the time we go out of this room, new technological concept might emerge. And if you're not adopting that, we're going to lose out that piece. There is a constant in fear, or maybe conception. There is a understanding that there is a cost of replacement of your existing equipment when you move to the next industrial revolution. But when you look at the data, actually it's not. In the industry 4, of course, all the equipment which as a company used to use was required to change. But that scenario was completely different in industry 2. Hardly 10 to 20% of the equipment was required to change. That deteriorated in somewhere in industry 3, up to 90% of the equipment was required to change. But look at in industry 4, where you all are, have seen those disruption. Just 40 to 50% of the equipment are required to modify, change, or address, because I think the machinery we are operating can be linked to the digital platform, and one can take care of this piece, which means against our normal conception, against our normal thinking, this is a different scenario on the ground, the cost of changing some of those equipment. And there's another conception that the productivity of small companies is lower than the large companies. That's true for the manufacturing sector, but for a services sector, that's not true. In fact, the MSME can be as productive as the large companies, because the services sectors are more driven by the human, your intangible forms of capital, unlike your physical capital, physical infrastructure required in the manufacturing. So, which means the first, what you call the era of first move can be taken up by the MSME in the services sector to improve their productivity and start countering the large companies. How that can be done? MSME need to ensure that they are part of the global value chain. Unfortunately, the number of companies or percentage of companies being part of the global value chain is very limited. You can count on the finger. All of you are aware about statistics. That statistics need to change by partnering to the global value chain. Now, moving to the second piece, that was a technological advancement that was about the productivity which we are expecting, and how MSME can be a part of global value chain to improve the productivity. Now, moving to the second challenge, market access. Last year, we reached out to most of you, inside this room and outside this room, to ask a couple of questions, that how you find reaching out to your prospect, either domestic market or the international market. It is easy to find your prospect or difficult. Unfortunately, for the international market, that's not a good data point. Just 30% of you said it's slightly easy to reach out to international prospect, but 70% is not easy. It's very difficult to reach out. And domestic still better scenario, because I think 70% plus they're easy to find their prospect, the customer, and the vendor. But international scenario is quite bad. Why? Because most of us are not using this, what you call the platform which we call a sales acceleration. Just to give some perspective, the 61% of you said we are not using any global platform which can help us to get connected with some of those global customers or domestic customer, vendor. But good thing is that 49% of that are expecting to change their behavior, which means they are willing to accept some of the intelligence tool to understand how to reach out to the companies, how to reach out to the prospect. That's a good news. And what are these tools talks about? From the manufacturing side, we have a HubSpot, Google, Salesforce, Lead for 1 month, and then analytics, India Mart. I mean, I'm just naming just few. There are many things. The unfortunate, we all have heard about this piece, but when we practice, only 39% of those people use those pieces, which is unfortunate. I think when we want to contribute to 75% of incremental GDP, somehow is going to help. Moving on, now why I was trying to talk about the technological penetration in the earlier, and then how that's going to help in terms of the market access. Now, when you are on the technology, when you are any form of sales acceleration tool, or you have a better connectivity, internet is one word, it's not just internet, it's not getting the lease line or something. Internet means how much of time you're spending to find your buyer and supplier or customer or the prospects. If you look at the dark blue line, who are using this digital tool? 48% of those people are saying that it's very easy to find the information about the buyer. And the 62% of those say that it's very easy to find information about the suppliers, as against just half of that figure. So look at the advantage of being on that internet, the being on the digital platform, being on the sales acceleration platform will help you to find your prospect, because more and more prospect, more and more customer is just going to add value to your entire P&L. Moving on, I think some of the further statistics. There are 4 categories of companies we put together from a digital adoption perspective. And I think during pandemic, we all have learned that there is no choice in terms of the digital adoption. It was forced digital adoption, and I think that have helped to fast track the digital adoption rate in India by 7 to 10 years. But look at the 4 categories, the digitally engaged companies who are basically using the digital technology to enable their sales and other system. They were able to generate 19% of the year-on-year revenue growth. And their global customer was something 11% of out of 100%. As against the company who's completely digitally offline. Their revenue growth was just about 10%, and the global customer is just 1%. I said how we can be a part of global value chain initially. Now this data talks about that when we have a more of a global customers, our revenue just shoots, just double from hardly 10% to nearly 20%. That itself, talks about the importance of being part of the digital, digital system, and how we can use those digital system to help reach to those, incremental target of 75% toward the 5 trillion economy. Now, third part, there's a third issues and challenges. And I was talking about there are 8 issues and challenges, which basically creating a hurdle in our growth journey. The third part out of that is access to finance. You don't need me to tell you, as I said, it's a universal. The last many decades, unfortunately, very limited things have been done. And look at the statistics. India is almost just better than the island on the pool of these countries. 6% of GDP is what the outstanding SME loans. There are many statistics can say that only 4 to 5% of MSME get the loan from the formal source. There are huge credit gap, many statistics available, but I just picked up the latest one, which we all can relate to the fact that we have a Switzerland, South Korea, China, in fact, the Belgium we talk about, more than 40% of their GDP. That amount is going to the MSME. That's the fund they are getting, and that one can assume that the type of growth support they are getting in their own countries, unfortunately, we are not having, which means there are bankers in this group. I think this is worth considering the statistics, and we can all think about how to improve these statistics. Now, again, we reached out to all of you guys. They said, if that's true, the 6% of GDP is reality, why you guys are not getting the fund from the bank? So there are multiple options. this pie chart number is not add up to 100 because there's multiple options we asked. So many people said that there are good focus by the bankers on credit scores. This collateral requirement, you can see the 32% of that respondents said that collateral requirement. We have uncertain cash flows. Of course, the bankers look forward for that. There's a need to turn financially literate. Many schemes, I was talking to the government officials last month when I was visiting their office. They said we run close to 60-70 schemes which will help MSME to get the fund, technological support, promotion in the international market. Unfortunately, the awareness is very limited. When they talk to MSME, they say, oh, I was not aware about this particular scheme. They said, okay, I mean, there needs to be done something to ensure that we as a beneficiary of those intended MSME schemes should get that information first and then the benefit second. Unfortunately, we don't have the information. That's reality coming. I think good 30% the people said, I'm not aware what's going on, how the government is supporting MSME. And then, of course, lack of credit info. We all know somehow we've gone through this pain when we reach out to the bankers in terms of the financial institutions for the funding, working capital requirement, or project funding. We all face. Maybe some of you might have faced beyond this, but there's the fraction of that. Now, I was saying if there are bankers in this room, we can solve that problem profitably. And that's the case. We looked at our DNB database and we looked at companies, 6 set of companies we picked up. 3 set, large, small and micro. Within each segment, we picked up the companies who are getting loan from a formal source and who are not getting loan from the formal source. Formal source here means the bank and financial institutions. If you look at statistics here, if I take out large company, but I think we are not going to address that piece within this room. Let's talk about the right-hand side of the chart. That's a 2 pillar. Small and medium, that's the middle one. The companies who did not get a loan or any financing from the formal source, they managed to generate risk, what we call return on the capital employed, close to 8%. But for the company who get the loan or funding from banks or the financial institution, they managed to generate return on the capital employed equal to 19%. Look at the opportunity. The 19% return employed on the capital, generated on the capital employed are good enough for companies to repay to the banks. So if the banks are worried about the repayment capacity, I think they should not, because even if bankers are charging higher premium, they're still able to manage the good profit. And look at the micro. Gap 17%. 2% they are generating return on the capital employed, but 19% when they get fund from the banks, which means the scenario what we have seen, the 6% of the GDP as an outstanding loan can change if you actually look on this potential, especially for the micro. And then if micro start getting the loan, the level of growth, level of graduation from the micro to small to medium and medium to large certainly will go up. And the target of 75% what we're talking about, I think that's not a big challenge. Now, some of this talking point, I think we all know what needs to be done. Probably this is the last slide on the presentation today. I think there's a third point we're talking about how to improve the access to finance. And you all have reached out to some of the institutions, some of those chambers, industry association, and then bankers, and then government, to share your feedback. This is just some of that, basically. How government can fast track the open credit enablement network and promote democratization of the credit. How some of those public sector banks should ensure that the lending, some percentage of the lending are moving towards the portfolio cash flow based lending rather than asset based lending. That some percentage has to be basically fixed. I know some of those banks have decided by 2024, 2025, they will do that. I think need is now. I think they should basically prepone that target. Some of the public sector banks should onboard the account aggregator ecosystem as early as possible. The government should create an enabling ecosystem to seamlessly ingest alternate source of the data. Because when you're talking about the credit info on the companies or basically the companies who are seeking the loan, I mean, they can take multiple data sources to understand what is the payment behavior of that. And then, of course, there's a need to push some improvement in the insolvency and the bankruptcy, because I think even the lender should get the confidence when they're lending to the MSME. And the last, there's some amount of improvement required on the trades platform. I think 90% of the invoices are there, get resolved, time, but I think if what we talk about, how we can ensure the public sector companies are operating through this one, and then private large companies are incentivized to be part of this one, I think at least working capital need of MSME will be addressed. Just to give you, I know, just information from government, they're really pushing very hard to all the public sector companies to ensure that they are part of this system. So at least, I mean, basically someone has to lead, and there's no one better than the government to lead on the platform, because if you have all these companies who are basically trading through this platform, the one of the serious concern which basically emerge all of a sudden, and there's a discussion point amongst the government functionaries, the delayed payment. And I'm sure that when we stepped into this one, the certain percentage of your customer delaying more than 180 days. That's a reality. And surprising data point coming from DNB that your Navratna company is the biggest defaulter. So that's the stuff, and they are talking about government, and they are taking it very seriously. And in fact, we spoke with Ministry of Finance, and they are working on this one. They are serious. They just want to reach out to those Navratna companies for defaulting, which means things is going to go better. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for sharing that knowledge with us. It was a pleasure to listen to you. Moving on to our next section, we have a series of panel discussions